Watch a movie, get inspired, give back, help a charity. It's time for a Movikarma watch party. Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Milrad, and I'm the founder of Movikarma. We're really excited to have a special guest with us today, Tarell McCraney, who is a Oscar-winning screenwriter and playwright. I'm really excited to talk to you, Tarell, today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, we at Movikarma, we're really passionate, as you may know, about inclusion and social impact, and really just learning more about how people got their start in the industry. So I'd love to just hear a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about your background, how you came to become a screenwriter and a playwright.
Well, playwriting I've been doing, most of my life. I was lucky enough to be accepted into um, a lot of social programs that were for students who were in underserved communities. Some of those programs have gone away, and that's really sad. And I hope to help bring some of them back. But they were programs just allowing folks who wouldn't necessarily get classes in things like acting, dancing, and writing to do that. And I took those lessons at places like Thomas Armar, ballet, the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center here in Miami, and there is a man named Teo Castellanos who ran a program called the Village Improv Troupe. That project doesn't exist anymore, but it allowed for students to become peer educators through theater. So they got to do theater, and they would learn things like drug prevention, and they would learn things like how to care for folks who are HIV and AIDS positive, and learned allyship in that way about those folks infected or affected by the pandemic at that time. And so that was my start, really just writing, material for my community to reflect on situations and engage, really trying issues of the project, but also through ways that could be enlightening and fun for 15-year-olds. I don't know how you have fun by saying no to drugs. Like, how do you do that in a fun way? But we found ways to do it, which is probably why I became more interested in doing writing, because you could find really interesting ways to show people just how extraordinary life can be, even in the most trying of circumstances. And then I went to performing arts high school called New World School of the Arts, and then I went to undergrad for theater, and then I went to grad school for writing specific.
And so, yeah, I have lots more questions about what happened after, but I'm curious to talk more about. You mentioned, it sounds like there were several mentors perhaps in your life early on, if not more than several. As you were talking, I was reminded of my eighth grade English teacher in a public school in New Jersey, who I'm still friends with, who promised me he would come to all of my graduations if I through whatever I did in creative writing and encourage my writing. Did you have a lot of people like that who really supported you and encouraged you that maybe you're still in touch with today?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I never moved out of Miami proper, is that I have deep roots here, and though I come from a background that doesn't normally go into this field, or that isn't, or at least the story of that isn't normal. I have a great love and respect for my community, because there are just so many people who are there for me, and to know that I was valued as an artist. And so yeah, I mean, if we started naming them, we wouldn't be able to finish. I have from there are teachers that pop up at places that I'm like, and that don't think I remember them, but I absolutely do. There are guidance counselors, there are directors, there are people who just handed out flowers on the street, who said words to me of encouragement. Um, so my community here in Miami was really important in terms of helping me shape my artistic voice, and making sure that I felt like um, you know, it can be hard because you think to yourself, well, I can't represent everybody's voice, right? But when you're valued, when your voice in a community has value, it makes you feel like at least you have one place where you can be, you can work with people, you can work with, and especially theater. Theater is so collaborative. You need to feel like you're in community to make it work. So, yeah, is the short answer that I should have probably said, but
no, that's great. Do you feel like those people, those multitudes of folks, like did they put what was possible for you, kind of in your vein of existence, so to speak? Meaning, did you growing up in Miami, like as you said, did you feel like without those people, you may not have been able to imagine, where you ended up, or how did that happen for you? Did you just kind of continue pursuing your passion as a writer?
I think there's something interesting, especially as a Black person who identifies as queer. You often are told that your place, and when I say told, there are messages from sort of macro society, is that your community doesn't value you. You can only be valued by going out to do this other thing, right? And so for a long time as a young person, I thought, oh, I got to get out of here and do something special for people to really value me. And to be quite honest, there are many places in in Miami I go right now, and people don't know who I am, which is fine by me. But those people who I matter to, and those people who I mattered to, 20 years ago, before any awards or even, any of the work that I was doing was making it to a national or international platform, those people still care for me and cared for me then. So, it's what they did show me in that way is that, again, there's something really important about where you call home, and who you're doing the work for. And especially in times like this, when we're thinking about, how do we affect change? Well, how do you affect change in your own community, in your own, 25 people radius, in your own, 12 block community? And those questions to me have become more prominent, and I can, if I look back, I actually can see where the kind of line of needing to be recognized in the industry, and needing to, and when I say industry, I mean like, what we think of as the economic drivers and the awards ceremonies, and then the need to just be more impactful to my community kind of like split.
Yeah, right.
and me go, oh yeah, that's important, and I hope, and I'll do what I can there, but there's so much I can't control in terms of the industry. And I often tell that to students right now. I'm speaking to a group at the Duke Ellington School in DC, and they were like, well, how do I break into the industry? I was like, well, what does that mean to you? What does that mean? Does that mean, define that, because that will help you the most. Right? It helps you because you now have a definition of what that means. If you don't have a definition of what that means, and you go running into the wind to try to break into the industry, you might be in the industry already and don't even know it. It might be a hell on earth that you never thought it could be, and you just don't know that it is because you never looked at it for what it really is. Yes, being able to contact certain folks and get projects done, or to talk about projects, or even develop projects. That is something that people need access to. And so when folks say breaking into in the industry and mean that, I absolutely understand what they mean. But that also doesn't necessarily mean you have to adhere to, what the major companies or the larger companies or the companies with the most resources do, because, there are people who, as much as we love all of the streaming platforms and the varying pluses, minuses, subscription-based television that you can watch, there's people who still don't watch it.
Yeah.
Particularly because they don't see themselves.
Right.
And there are folks in our communities who actually have more access and more ways, more means, more tools to making work and art and television, film, music, whatever, that can reflect that community in a more immediate way. And they don't take that opportunity because they don't value that community, right? That community doesn't make them in the industry. They'd rather go, you know. And
Right.
I say to my students all the time, I was like, it's great, but you know, New York has a lot of writers,
Hmm.
and you know, a lot of and a lot of writers who are writing about New York.
Mhm. Right.
And so does LA. LA has a lot of writers writing about LA.
Hmm.
But you know who doesn't have a lot of writers? You know, people. Where are you from? What
Yeah.
is the part of the world that you live in? And how many writers do you know from that corner of the world? And how many of the stories from that corner of the world are being told to those people? And are they, you know? So yeah, I try to make sure that we're clear about that, so folks don't go out chasing a kind of harm, because you know, most industries that are driven by capitalism have a great deal of harm in them.